On News 5 Live, a state of emergency is called for Southside Belize City following the pre-dawn detention of 82 persons described as active gang members. Classes will be suspended for 14 days due to COVID-19. The ministry explains the implications on education and the way forward. The Ministry of National Security says there is nothing new on the BDF helicopter crash. Families are offered an ex gratia payment, but there are still lingering questions. Keycocker is now a virtual ghost town. We'll show you the economic impact of COVID-19 on local tourism. And we'll show you how the elderly population is preparing for COVID-19. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
En la vida siempre hay más de un lado a cada historia, cosas buenas y no tan buenas, originales o imitaciones, noticias
Good evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Wednesday, March 18th. I am Marlene Cuellar. The new coronavirus, crime, and the recent crash of a BDF helicopter in which 4 soldiers died are heavy and hugely critical issues facing the nation. First, on the matter of crime. A press conference was held this afternoon by the top brass of the police department. The biggest item to come out of that is the announcement of a state of emergency, which is now in effect for 8 zones of Belize City, considered hotspots for 30 days in the first instance. Since the crack of dawn, there have been more boots on the ground and sweeping detentions have taken place as a way to bring gang warfare under control. News 5's Isani Kaitana reports on what it means for city residents.
At 3 o'clock this morning, as many as 250 law enforcement officers descended on various neighborhoods across Belize City. The coordinated pre-dawn sweep saw the rounding up of 82 persons described by the police department as known street figures who are actively involved in criminality. The raid, similar to one effected on the morning of September 5, 2018, heralded another state of emergency on the south side. Assistant Commissioner of Police Marco Vidal is the commander of operations.
We planned an operation that will carry us through the period that is necessary. And so this morning at 3 a.m., we launched an operation that is targeted. It is not random. It is targeted at the gang elements who have been causing the issues for us in terms of the violent crimes. So since this morning from 3 until current, we have just over 82 persons detained. The operation is continuing, so we may have increased numbers by the end of the day. However, our operation is being targeted in 8 zones that have been declared as the emergency areas for the state of emergency.
In the wake of a series of deadly shootings that have gripped the old capital since Sunday night, the Ministry of National Security has brought into force a situation of citywide danger in which government has suspended normal constitutional procedures in order to regain control. Attorney General Michael Perafit is also the Minister of National Security.
As you know, there's been a recent increase in extremely senseless violence within the city. You know, it's bad enough when somebody dies as a matter of violence. It is extremely and extra painful when it involves the death of an innocent child. Based on those activities, the Ministry of National Security has deemed it necessary and sought the approval of the Governor General, and we have gotten it, for him to declare a state of emergency and for him to sign some regulations governing the activities to be undertaken by the police, the BDF, and Coast Guard, if necessary, in the declared and demarked areas.
The largest of those 8 identified hotspots is Lake Independence. This morning, motorists traversing Central American Boulevard were being diverted to a single ingress into the community.
In relation to the operation, as I said, the operation was targeted specifically to those individuals we suspect are involved in some of the shootings and murders that have occurred most recently. As you have heard Mr. Maivit outline the most recent incidents. So the operation is targeted at that, but we are also in the same breath looking at firearms that they may use. And as I said, we had, so far we have 1 or 2 firearms and ammunition for .223 rifles, I believe it is. So that is the operation that we have currently. The area, as of this morning, is being cordoned off to ensure that no one leaves the area who we believe are the targets in the area. And then the operational teams enter the area and specifically go after those that we're targeting.
It is an operation that many on this side of the municipality have seen before, where police officers are joined by a pair of BDF soldiers, and together they patrol and stand guard over designated locations.
The police presence will be maintained in these areas of declared emergency areas with a view to ensure that we stay on top of the criminals. Now, for us from a police standpoint, the issue of gang and gang violence continue to plague our society. And over the past few days, we have seen that these activities have become more increased, and the criminals seem to become more emboldened in carrying out these senseless and heinous acts. It is reckless for one to just indiscriminately fire gunshots in a house, not knowing who or what they're shooting at. And when children are at the receiving end of those bullets, it is heart-wrenching.
With a state of emergency in effect, the police department will no longer be entertaining discussions with criminal elements. In fact, Commissioner of Police Chester Williams, who was once instrumental in brokering a ceasefire among rival factions, says he has had enough.
The time for talking is done. And so, going forward, my message to the gang members is this: if you want to live in society peacefully, it is your duty to adjust to society behavior and not the society to adjust to your behavior. And so we will be going after them night and day. Mr. Vidal, who is Commander Operations, have been tasked to oversee the day-to-day operations in Belize City where those gang areas are concerned.
And those daily campaigns, according to Attorney General Purfeet, may very well extend beyond the prescribed 30-day limit.
I want to add that whilst we're going through this process of this big stick approach, we will also be doing some analysis of the situation, more analysis. We'll be working with anyone who wants to work with us to ensure that we can come up with a proper and even more refined plan to tackle crime in the city and in the country. But in the meantime, we believe that while we must have that conversation, we must also demonstrate to the criminal element that their activities are not going to continue without them facing and being dealt with to the full extent of the law. This is where we are at this moment under the regulations that have been signed by the Governor General and that will be printed and distributed today. These people can be detained for up to 30 days. After 7 days, within 7 days, they'll be told as to the reason for their detention. After 14 days, the public will get a list of those people. After that 30-day period, the government can decide through the National Assembly to extend it for up to a year, and beyond that if we have to. We are not playing with these people.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.
While police conducted that early morning raid today, it is believed that a number of persons who are wanted for involvement in gang activity may have given them the slip and are headed to other parts of the country. According to Compol Chester Williams, a bulletin with the identities and photographs of all those individuals will be published in the days ahead, with a view to capture and return them to Belize City, where they will also be subjected to the 30-day lockdown.
Those who may believe that they can flee the city and go out district, let me warn you that we're also looking out and waiting for you out district. You're not going to live peacefully in this country. There are a number of persons in custody. Mr. Vidal will tell you the exact amount. And there are a number of persons that we're still seeking at this time, for whom we have prepared detention orders for. We will be preparing a list of those persons with their photograph, and we'll be publishing them in the media so that you can see them. And if you see them anywhere in your neighborhood, call us, call Crime Stoppers. They'll be given a reward for the capturing of these persons. So we'll be publishing their name very shortly, hopefully within 2 to 3 days. I will put it out there for the public to be able to call in and tell us where they are, because some of them have fled and gone into other parts of the country in hiding. Well, we want to flush them out and get them to prison where they belong. At the expiration of the 1 month, as the minister have said, we will be making representation to the government and ask for extension, because we believe that with all that is about to happen with the COVID-19, we cannot have the ICU in Belize City filled with gangsters with gunshot injury. Then when your grandmother or your grandfather get corona and need the ICU, there'll be no space for them. It cannot work.
It is expected that of the 82 persons who are presently in custody and are headed to the Belize Central Prison for the next 30 days, a number of them, through their respective attorneys, will be seeking judicial relief via the Supreme Court. They will likely be applying for bail. But Attorney General Michael Perife told the media at a press conference today that the month-long detention is fixed and that applications for bail will only be entertained once those 30 days have elapsed.
Attorney myself, who the police know very well. The attorneys must also be true and honest with their clients. As officers of the court, they must be true and honest with the public. The regulations are stiff, yes. Don't sell your client's dreams. If these people are detained under the present state of emergency, they will not get any bail. They will not get any judicial relief for at least 30 days. The attorneys cannot come to the police station nor go to the prison with the promise that they can just take somebody out, and if they can't take somebody out, then there is massive blowback and complaints. Be honest with your client. If you're detained during this period, it will be for at least 30 days. You, in 7 days, will know what you are being detained for. Within 14 days, your picture and your information will be made public. And then after that 30-day period, that's when the usual judicial process opens up. So if there's any complaint within 30 days, it's just complaint for complaint's sake. But they should be honest with their clients.
Equally challenging for the Belize Police Department in its attempt to put away known gang members is the fact that the lower courts continue to impose fines and grant subsequent extensions when they cannot meet their payment schedules. This allows known criminals to remain on the streets. According to the Commissioner of Police, a special request will be made to the judiciary to revisit this policy, since it is part of the problem that keeps gang members out of prison.
But I have a difficulty, because the public believe that we, the police, don't want to put these people behind bars. But let me say this, and the judiciary is going to be upset with me about this, but I have to let the public know that we have charged a number of gang members. They have gone to court, they have pled guilty. The court imposed a fine. We have issue with the imposition of a fine. But the court do have that discretion, and we respect that. But after the time has lapsed for the fine to be paid, the court still go again and issue an extension to these gang members to pay the fine. So when we believe that when the time to pay the fine is up and we can get them to prison on commitment warrant, we can't get them to prison because they're continually getting extension, and then they remain on the street, and these are the same people who are creating problem for us.
Minister of State Elodia Aragon Jr., himself a former ranking police officer, is responsible for the day-to-day operation of the Ministry of National Security, which includes the Belize Police Department. While additional men and women have been deployed into the streets of the city, more boots on the ground will not solve the issues of crime and violence. He says that along with increased patrols and deterrence is the need for a systematic approach to focus on the root causes of these social issues.
At this point in time, this state of emergency is to arrest the situation, but yes, we must come up with a tangible and strategic plan in terms of how we go about dealing with the crime situation, because at the end of the day, we have to look way down into the medium and long term to get the kind of success that will benefit everybody on a whole. And how do we go about doing this? Well, yes, we have strategic plans, strategic objectives from the Commissioner, but I do think that there's a greater need to look at things that are truly affecting the whole cause and effect. One, we have to look at our judiciary. We must look at law reform in terms of the criminal laws that are out there, things that help us, that would help our officers in terms of greater efficiency in prosecution, whether it be training, whether improvement in forensics, etc. These are the kind of things that we must focus on to help us. I know we have new technologies coming into stream, but at the end of the day, we must have a plan that will be holistic, not only in terms of asking other ministries to come on board, such as the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, which to a certain extent they are there, looking at people who are interacting in interventions and that. But I do think that we must look at it from a systemic approach in dealing with the things that will have that long-term effect that we need in this country.
One of the preventative measures taken in preparation against the novel coronavirus is that schools at all levels across the country will be closed for 2 weeks leading into the Easter holidays. Classes are expected to resume on Monday, April 20th. A press conference was hosted by the Minister of Education, Minister Patrick Faber, who stressed that school closes at the end of Friday and not before. Faber says that the ministry does not expect teachers to be at school. As it relates to the school support staff, however, Faber says that the management will make that decision. During the 2 weeks, students will participate in home-based learning, which involves educational activities that students can engage in while at home. Such activities include readings and assignments. The government's decision to suspend classes, according to Faber, applies to all educational institutions.
If you're wondering if this applies to private schools and tertiary level institutions, the answer to that is yes. We expect that all educational institutions comply with this 2-week school closure. And most of these schools, of course, except for the private primary schools, are grant-aided schools, so that at the tertiary level, so that those 6 farms across the country are expected to close during this 2-week period as well. We expect to have the compliance of Galen and of the University of Belize as well. During this time of school closure, we expect that home-based learning will happen. And what do we mean by home-based learning? We mean that educational activities that students can engage in at home to build on or to retain knowledge and skills will take place. And we are stressing that this home-based learning is not a replacement for school-based learning. And the objective at this time is merely to engage students during the 2-week period of school closure. We have had questions as to whether or not schools can arrange for on-site small group student learning activities during the 2-week period of school closure, and the ministry advises against this, so that our instruction is that students should not be required to go to school during the 2-week period of school closure.
Going forward, schools are being asked to provide parents with a home-based learning plan for their children. Parents are to ensure that students spend a part of each day in reading and learning activities. Faber also stressed that should a school conduct online classes, access to internet services as well as the appropriate devices to all students should be considered.
The schools are asked to prepare and share with parents a home-based learning plan for students, which includes suggested topics and activities such as readings and assignments. This is similar to what some schools and teachers normally provide to students over Easter or Christmas breaks to keep them learning while they are away from school. And of course, as I've said, these 2 weeks will stretch on into the Easter vacation, and so we ought to really be preparing in regards to the home-based learning package for an entire month. What are parents expected to do? Well, parents and caregivers are asked to ensure that children spend a part of each day engaged in reading and learning activities that are provided by schools or obtained from other sources. We have asked the Ministry of Education personnel to prepare through, I think it is squads, resources that will be lodged on the ministry's website, or that we have links so that people can go there and make a connection so that our children can spend these 2 weeks engaged in reading and learning activities. The question about online learning has also been popping up, and we do encourage this where it is possible. However, we are concerned that where that kind of practice is going to occur, that adequate access by all students can be assured.
As for the primary school examination and the CSEC, those have been postponed indefinitely, says Minister Faber. According to Faber, it is not certain when students will sit those tests.
The primary school examination scheduled for March 30th and April 30th are now suspended, and we will at a later date provide new information on these portions of the primary school exam. For our high schoolers who are concerned about CSEC examinations and or tertiary level students who are concerned about the CAPE exams, remember that these exams are regional exams, and the regional body responsible for CSEC and CAPE, CXC, Caribbean Examinations Council, is at this time considering adjustments to the exam administration period. Our personnel here in Belize in the Ministry of Education are parts of those discussions, and once those decisions are finalized, we will make every attempt to have Belizean students and their parents know what is expected of them as it relates to these exams. But we will tell you now that, in fact, from Belize's point of view, there are several areas that we are now well behind in, and because of the closure of school, we have indicated that there are no ways possible for us to be up to the mark in terms of the timeline required for the current track that these exams would be on. And so, quite likely, this is the position. We won't continue with this current time.
Coming up, the family of Derek King makes a public appeal for action to end the senseless violence.
Planning your next vacation? Picturing bird watching, jungle tours, waterfalls, horse
8 areas across the city are on lockdown tonight as a state of emergency is in effect. The crime that swept through the city at the start of the week left 7 persons dead. Derek King, an employee of Bowen & Bowen, was shot and killed on Tuesday afternoon on West Street while he was making deliveries. King became the latest victim of the ongoing feud among the gangs. 3 others were injured in that gun violence and are hospitalized. Here is News 5's Isani Caetano.
The late afternoon murder of 22-year-old deliveryman Derek King, an employee of Bowen & Bowen Limited, is the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, bringing into immediate effect a state of emergency south of the Haulover Creek. On Tuesday, just after 3 p.m., King's mother, Perline Polonio, was inside her place of business when her daughter received an ominous phone call.
Now my daughter get the call that Derek get shot, right? And I try to be humble, I try to be easy with it, and I say like, is only you sure that Derek? He say, yes ma'am, that Derek. I say, I say, okay. So I say, oh. Next call come in, Derek get shot. So we try to reach the hospital. When we reach the hospital, my cousin, that's Derek, you know, and when I see Derek in the police vehicle, I feel like they ripped the whole inside of my body out.
Sadly, it is the kind of anguish that has become all too familiar. King, along with a co-worker who has since been identified as 20-year-old Haywood Brown, was on the job delivering beverages near the intersections of Orange and West Streets when gunfire erupted.
Police were called to the corner of Orange and West Street, where they observed the motionless body of a male person identified as Derek King, 22 years, Bowen & Bowen employee. Also, along with King, was Haywood Brown, another employee who had also received gunshot injuries. Also receiving gunshot injuries in the same incident was Francine Wade, 48 years, and Clifford Oliver, 38 years. What we know so far is that the 2 Bowen & Bowen employees had stopped to make a delivery when they were approached by 2 male persons who fired shots towards their direction, injuring all 4 persons.
Of the 4 victims, King was mortally injured. The others suffered varying degrees of injury. The Fabers resident, who had been with B&B for the past 3 years, is described by his grieving mother as quiet and humble. Her son, she believes, was simply a victim of circumstance when feuding groups in the vicinity of West Street began exchanging gunfire.
The way how he looked like he made it at the wrong place at the wrong time. But still, that could have be avoided. The amount of shots where I see my son get, that like then they take anger out of somebody, out of somebody, and that shouldn't be. You understand? Even if Derek me get the first shot and he try fight that, why he continue shooting? Why he continue?
Fortunately for Brown, Wade and Oliver, they were able to escape grave injuries.
Francine Wade and Haywood Brown have since been treated and released from the hospital whilst police investigation into this matter continues.
Notwithstanding a state of emergency being implemented, Polonia is making a desperate plea to the powers that be to seriously crack down on crime.
So why this government or the Prime Minister or whatever do not step down and do something to the young man before it go really, really far? I don't go far because for the week, how much people in the morgue, how much people, innocent people, babies, they ever sit down and think that when they don't do that?
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Caetano.
As we've said, the security measures put in place by the Ministry of National Security was triggered by the bloodbath in Belize City. Within less than 48 hours, 7 persons were killed and 9 others injured in as many as 9 shooting incidents between Sunday night and Tuesday morning. The north side of Belize City, specifically the Caribbean Shores Division, continues to mourn the deaths of one of their own in the most violent act of gun violence in recent times. 3 persons, Philip Leslie, his girlfriend Shakira White, and her 4-year-old son Dominic Ramdas, were killed when a gunman came up to their room window on the lower flat of a house in Kings Park and opened fire. A 4th person, White's 2-year-old daughter, was also injured in the leg but survived.
On Monday morning, the police learned that a 3-year-old child named Dasha Ramdas was observed with injuries and was transported to the Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital. This is as a result of the said shooting on Sunday night. The other child, Dominique Ramdas, passed away on Monday night sometime around 6:30 p.m. whilst undergoing treatment.
Another innocent infant was senselessly killed in the spate of violence in the city. 5-year-old Kia Herbert was sleeping with her mother inside their bedroom when a gunman aimed his gun at the house on Pitter Street. Frances Herbert was struck once to the shoulder, but baby Kia took 3 bullets to the abdomen and succumbed shortly after at the KHMH. Since then, an investigation has led to the detention of several persons, but no charges so far.
Early Tuesday morning, shortly after 1:30 a.m., police were called to Pitter Street in Belize City, where they observed one Frances Herbert with gunshot injuries, 27 years, domestic, along with her 5-year-old daughter, Kia Herbert, who apparently was also shot. They were both transported to the Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital, where Kia succumbed to her injuries whilst undergoing treatment. We have several leads in relation to this matter, and police have detained several persons pending this investigation.
The Lake Independence area is in lockdown, having been identified as a hotspot for gang activity. PDF soldiers and police officers are stationed at all streets and access to that community. On Monday night, the gun violence in Belize City ended up on Gladden Street, where a father of one was executed. Colette Mortar was at a house where he frequents when someone came calling his name. He exited the screen door to be blasted by bullets from an unknown gunman. While ACP Joseph Maivet did not go into specifics on a motive, he says that investigators are following up on several leads.
Sometime shortly after 9 p.m. in Belize City, where they observed a male dark-complexioned person later identified as Colette Mortar with apparent gunshot injuries and motionless. He was transported to the Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival. What the police know so far is that Mortar, along with friends, were at a home on Gladden Street when he was called outside by someone, and as a result, he then went outside, and that is when he received those injuries. We are pursuing several leads in relation to this at this point in time.
Minister of Education and the UDP's former deputy leader, Patrick Faber, today confirmed to the media that he has submitted his application to contest the party's leadership convention. His opponent, former National Security Minister John Saldivar, called on Faber to support Omar Figueroa as the new leader in an endorsement convention. But the caveat is that if Faber submits his name, Saldivar will do so as well, even though he had to step down due to the Lev Derman fiasco, which revealed that he'd been taking money from the fraudster who has now been convicted. So both will again go head-to-head to become the leader of the United Democratic Party and ultimately take over when the Prime Minister demits office. Faber spoke on the matter today.
It is, for me, not important at this time. I made the submission, you notice, that I had promised all of you in the media that when I made up my mind that I would come back to you and tell you. And I did no such thing merely because it's not the kind of time for that. We are in a fight to try to ensure that this country remains COVID-19 free. And that's the bigger fish that we have to fry at this time. Now, of course, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, but you don't want all of the issues that we are trying so desperately to attain in terms of this fight to be drowned out by all of this drama that we know can come with the convention. And that is why my submission of my name for the leadership was very quiet.
So, but what do you make up of John Saldivar's Facebook post where he said that he's supporting Omar Figueroa? You should support Figueroa, and if you do submit your name, he will submit his name. The tone of that status update was very pointed.
Well, as I said, I'm not going to get into that kind of back and forth. My main focus right now is to lend all of my efforts. And of course, I have to be very concerned about my constituents as well. So for the next few days, I will batten down the hatches in my own constituency to make sure that our people try to remain as safe as possible.
But the convention will have to wait, since according to Faber, during a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, it was decided that the leadership convention be postponed indefinitely as the country deals with the COVID-19 threat. Faber welcomes the postponement of the convention since he says he can focus on preparing his division to take preventative measures for COVID-19.
In a cabinet decision yesterday, well, while we were there in cabinet, I should say, we agreed that the convention should be put off until we are able to deal with this matter effectively, that the matter being COVID-19. In a way, it's a relief to me that we've said, that's why I willingly agreed, that is secondary at this time. We need to focus on this very, very big award.
After the break, the latest reports on the fatal crash of a BDF chopper.
If you manage, own, or know a private site where tours can be conducted, this message is for you.
Late this evening, the Ministry of National Security held a press conference about the investigation into the fatal helicopter incident. The press was informed that the reports, one from the Belize Civil Aviation Department and one from Bell, the manufacturers of the UH-1H helicopter, have been completed. The report wasn't shared at the briefing. Instead, it was posted to the ministry's website, where the media accessed it following the briefing around 6 this evening. So we haven't had a chance to review the entire report, but today the ministry answered some questions from the press and shared their observations into these latest reports. Minister of National Security Michael Perfit says that the report didn't show anything new or significantly different from the previous release. Here's how that went.
To me, it adds nothing new, nothing. There are no surprises in there, but I don't expect you to trust me, so you could read it for yourself when we post it online.
Okay, but so is it still pointing to non-mechanical error, a pilot error? Are those reports still pointing to pilot error?
Well, they don't get into that per se directly. Essentially, they just analyze the aircraft.
Okay, and are there any ballistic reports, for example, anything that indicates any activity with gunfire?
You mean new reports?
Yes.
No. Currently, the report remains that there's no evidence of any gunshot to the mainframe or other parts of the aircraft. An autopsy was done. A full autopsy was done with photographs and everything. There was no sign of any harm by any firearm or anything to that effect. The autopsy report, naturally, we have given the families the opportunity for them to view it or have it if they want. But naturally, what they do with it is their choice. It is not the position of the government to release it to the public. We don't want those pictures circulating on Facebook, to be honest with you.
And then the other question is about the Honduran report found that the engine was energized. I'm sorry. The Honduran report found that the engine was energized at the point of contact, or that was their conclusion. What has Bell concluded about the function of the engine?
Well, I haven't seen anything differently that they have concluded.
So it was not a mechanical failure?
Right. It wasn't a mechanical failure. They did not indicate that there was anything wrong with the helicopter per se.
Okay.
Except that it crashed. But after that, but before that, no, there's no indication that from their report.
Is there any indication from any of the reports yet as to why it was going full speed, or if that was what normally happens?
Well, as they said in their report, the Hondurans, essentially, when they talk about a spatial disorientation or misorientation or what have you. But you would have to interpret that to mean, given that the aircraft was going on a right turn downward at 1,000 feet per minute before it hit the water, based on the damage to the aircraft and how they interpret it. In their view, in one of their theories could be, since there is no other damage to anything that would indicate otherwise, that the pilot in command was not fully aware of how high he was or how low he was. And when he made that bank, he wasn't aware that he was much lower than he thought he was. We have to assume that the pilot in command didn't purposely put the aircraft in the water. So we have to believe that it's possible that based on their report, one of the issues could have been the spatial disorientation.
On Thursday, we will have more on these reports. Before the press conference, the ministry met with the families of the deceased BDF soldiers. Following that meeting, attorney for Mendez, Chaco, and Beiser families, Audra Matura, spoke with reporters to share some of the takeaways from the Honduran report.
The key things that we were looking at is still questioning the timeline, trying to inquire. In the report from the Hondurans, it says, like, we spoke to personnel from this, or some people had this assumption, but they didn't give names, so we wanted specifically. Like, one of the things they said, they heard the chopper when it was in the area, and then afterwards they didn't hear it. So we wanted to know, so did anyone hear a crash? Did anyone hear a song? And there was a sentence that said, and so we assumed that either it went in another place or it just left. They didn't assume the worst. So we are saying, okay, who made that assumption and why? Things like that we are clarifying. Last time too, I told you that the analysis at page 14 has basically said that it is human error. It didn't say pilot error, human error. And I won't go into details of that either, other than to say that we got some clarifications as to that. And since then, we've been able to read the report that made us reach certain conclusions and has shown very interesting information that, which when on proper review of that report, it actually speaks more ill of the process protocol and what the military has done, the BDF has done, what the Air Wing has done, than against the pilots. I know that there was a news report on, I don't remember which media house, where there was an interview with CEO Lovell, in which he's assuring that the BDF have goggles. I have here at page 10, at page 11, and I want to read at least one of the pages, the exact wording of what was the finding of the Honduran Army. Here what it says. Finding number 3. It was verified in the training records that none of the pilots were certified to fly with night vision visors, since the BDF does not have this equipment. It's repeated several times in this report. Why is that important? It's important because, not to make my esteemed friend Colonel Lovell look bad, but he's misinformed. What we found out in questioning the general today, he says, yes, there are night goggles, but not for flight. You see, there are different types of night goggles. There's the one that the infantry use, there might be the ones that the Coast Guard use, but these are special night flight goggles.
Attorney Audrey Matura also shared more information on the matter of compensation. She says that the Minister of National Security has made a commitment to pay each of the affected families an ex gratia payment of $100,000. Matura explains how that will work.
We had been asking for the family to get an advance on the benefits that they're entitled to. We got a mixed commitment at some point. The people, like the CEO of the ministry, was saying, yes, that's not a problem. The general and those who are at the front line and work in this kind of work and know the dangers were not opposed to it, but the minister put his foot down and said, hell no. No, you all will not get an advance. Go and get your letters and grants of administration, and then we'll forward that to you. So that's kind of bad news. On the brighter side, however, he announced that each family or the family of each of the deceased will be getting, in addition to their benefits, that they would be treated as though they were retired. In addition to that, they will be given an ex gratia payment of $100,000 each. Now, the way that works, that usually goes to the children or the people who really under law would be entitled. None of these gentlemen left a will, and so it would be distributed under the rules of intestacy, which is found in our Administration of Estates Act. So that's on the bright side. That has nothing to do with whether they're sued and there's compensation or anything, because remember last time I kept telling you, they kept saying, don't worry, they'll be compensated, and I'm thinking, are they using that word loosely, because compensated means some kind of liability and you're paying them. He clearly heard our interview and then corrected it and said, no, this is an ex gratia payment. It's like a goodwill payment. And we're thankful for that. We're very thankful, but we know that's not money that will come up immediately, because we have to go through the process of filing to the court.
When we come back, the once thriving destination of Kickocker comes to a standstill. And we check in on the COVID-19 preparation for the elderly. Belize's economy is heavily dependent on tourism, so that the looming COVID-19 threat is presenting major shocks to the industry. The Philip Golson International Airport remains open, but the number of flights and passengers are dwindling. Hotel cancellations are fast and furious, and cruise ships are not calling on port. Businesses all over are scaling down, and as employees are being sent home, there is uncertainty as to when business will rebound. Today, News 5's Dwayne Moody was in Keycocker, where the once thriving destination has come to a standstill. Here's that report.
The economic impact of COVID-19 on the tourism industry in Belize has been fast and furious across the country, even as there is still no laboratory-confirmed case at this time within our borders. It is the peak of the tourism season, where thousands of international visitors would flood the many destinations for the white sandy beaches and the breathtaking marine tours. A trip to the island of Keycocker, however, reveals a ghost town. There are only a handful of tourists on the island, and many islanders have become jobless. So what to do when the lifeblood of a community is being severed?
We've had people who had planned destination weddings, those are being cancelled. Being a tourist destination, the second most visited destination in Belize, we will feel the effects of that. Most businesses are already putting plans in place to do a skeleton staff. Others are thinking, and we're discouraging other business from laying off people. We don't know how long this will be. The government said some relief will come for the tourism industry, so we're hoping that our businesses here from the island will get some of that relief that they spoke about. We're preparing for the worst, meaning that we know the economical impacts will be felt widespread on the island because we depend and we live off tourism.
Several restaurants were closed today, and at least one international water taxi has discontinued services, triggering the unemployment of its entire staff. Time is the only factor before managements take the tough decision to close their doors. In the case of Keycocker Plaza Hotel, in less than 24 hours, business will be shut down for a month in the first instance.
I have 2 rooms being occupied. These were 2 individuals that were here from February, actually. I had one family that booked for actually 19 nights. So they've been here for a while, but these 2 rooms are actually checking out tomorrow. So after that, then we're completely empty.
So what happens next?
Well, because there won't be anybody in the hotel, there's a need to close it down. I mean, we won't have the need to be open or, under operation if there's no tourists coming into the island or if our borders are closing down. Our hotel has approximately about 10 employees at the moment. So given that we have to close down, everybody has to be laid off. I think it's going to impact everyone. If there's no job, there's no income, it's not going to affect the employees themselves, but families and, households.
Do you know how long you guys will be closed for?
For now, we have scheduled to be closed for 10 days. However, as the cancellations increase, there are possibilities that we're looking at a month.
Dirty McNasty is a hostel on the island, and in an effort to stimulate business, they are offering a place for tourists to stay for an extended period. Those international visitors, we are told, are choosing to remain in Belize and not travel back to their countries of origin, which have confirmed cases of COVID-19.
We have a lot of people that are stuck here that really can't go back because they find out that it's there and they want to be on the safe side. So we'll have a full canteen at this hostel here, which will provide food. We'll have their rooms private. We'll make sure every day it's clean. All hand sanitizer. We provide, like I say, everything that they need. We got a big playground here, so we'll keep the people safe. We're going to meet the people's demands. We have people that have a budget. We have people who can handle this. We're going to talk to them and see what they can handle, and we'll meet the demands in any which way. Because this is not only for the money, this is for looking out for people. This is a virus that is very serious.
The village chairlady, Selene Villanueva Pot, says that over the weekend the council met with shopkeepers to address the issue of price gouging and to ensure that there is some extent of equitable distribution of sanitary supplies.
We've had the issue with price gouging. We had to call an emergency meeting on Sunday with shopkeepers, and we reminded them that the issuance of liquor license come from the village council and the Kickocker Liquor Board. So we reminded them that they need to come in for this license. So we asked them to please, in a time of need, for them not to take advantage of the people who need these items. And we asked them as well to not to mass sell to one person, but to try and spread whatever supply they have.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Health officials have warned that it is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when the novel coronavirus gets here. The government has introduced some preventative and containment measures for the country. While Belize remains one of 3 countries in the region where there are no confirmed cases, some 164 countries already have COVID-19. But as the virus continues to spread, countries are stepping up their measures and people are being encouraged to take their own steps to safeguard their health. One of the ways families can prepare is to put together a kit of basic supplies, should it be needed. We note that panic buying and stockpiling is not necessary. It is advisable to have things like your medication and other important items for children and the elderly should your family require it. News 5's Andrea Polanco reports.
There are no confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Belize, and right now Belizeans are able to move around in country. But that may change if we get cases of the novel coronavirus. Persons of interest may have to go into self-isolation or quarantine for 14 days. And other more serious preventative measures, such as a lockdown, can be instituted based on the situation on the ground. And so to prepare oneself and home if you're faced with more stringent measures, persons may want to put together a small kit of emergency items, such as prescription medication or a few over-the-counter medications. Families with young babies and elderly persons may also want to prepare for these vulnerable groups just in case. Here are a few recommendations from a critical care doctor, Jorge Hidalgo.
How we can get prepared to having acetaminophen or Tylenol, who is the same at home, is advisable. Have enough water, and of course, as again the different type of supplies that you most of the time need for a period of 2 to 3 weeks. But importantly, in case we have patients in the group of the vulnerable people, that means that these patients probably we need to make sure that they have supply of medication for at least 2 weeks or a little bit longer in case of patients with hypertension, have failure. If the patients have diabetes, we need to make sure that they have the different type of medication, either insulin or pills that they use to control the sugar. If you have babies, supplies to take care of the babies for a period of time of 2 weeks. In this is the case that we are going to face a situation like that.
While it may be useful to purchase some non-perishable goods as well as your favorite food items, it is important not to stockpile. Groceries with longer shelf life are good to have, but you can also keep a small supply of fresh goods which are good for your health. It is also important to have water in your homes.
We don't need to wait until that information gets. No, I think so at this point we can start to get some of the things that we know that we can have it for a week, for 2 to 3 weeks. No, probably in that case some of the canned foods is going to be reasonable. Of course, we need to make sure that the expiration date is good. Depends on what is your water supply. Also, we need to make sure we have a good supply of water, because water is important. We need to make sure we can keep your hydration. Most important than anything, again, we need to have a plan at home, a plan of action in case the situation could be that bad. Hopefully, no, and all of us are praying that this is not the case.
Cleaning and hygiene supplies for hand washing, bathing, laundry, and general cleaning, as well as disinfectants to keep surfaces clean, are important to have in your homes. But Dr. Hidalgo stresses that in the event someone in isolation gets sick or there's a lockdown, you should call the relevant health authorities first.
And the most important thing if we get sick is, and especially with respiratory symptoms, is trying to stay at home and call our the health provider just to explain the symptoms. If we believe could be related with that in the event that we get in touch or we are coming from a country with exposure. No? If this is not the case, we still recommend that you stay at home and contact your health provider to receive instructions. No?
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
Coming up after the break, we'll show you proper hand washing technique to prevent the transmission of the novel coronavirus.
Streaming made easier with NextGen. NextGen's internet and MyTV package.
The novel coronavirus is particularly deadly to the older population, many whose health conditions are worsened by pre-existing conditions. HelpAge Belize manages 2 institutions with a concentration of folks who are most at risk of the virus. So how are they preparing the elderly for COVID-19? Here's News 5's Hipólito Novello with the following report.
According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, older people are at a higher risk of becoming severely ill if they catch the deadly novel coronavirus. In most cases, these older adults are also challenged by pre-existing conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, and respiratory complications. It is for these reasons that the elderly is a fragile group. An executive director for HelpAge Belize, Averine Boer, says she began preparing for the threat a month ago.
We recognize that the older persons are a vulnerable population. We have been cognizant of the situation globally, and hence we have started our preparedness about a month ago. A number of our older persons are affected with non-communicable diseases and the complications, such as they have heart problems, they may have hypertension, the diabetes, quite a number we know with our diabetics, quite a number of them are amputees. What support they need.
HelpAge Belize manages 2 residential institutions, Sister Cecilia Home in Belize City and the Octava Waite Center in San Ignacio, and 9 activity centers across the country. HelpAge, through caregivers, looks after 72 older folks, 38 at Sister Cecilia and 34 at Octava Waite.
All activity centers will cease activities with effect from Friday of this week. So in the case of Bemopan, we normally would have activities on Mondays and Thursdays. Thursday will be the last day. We will close, and we will not reopen until after the Easter, and we will have to await the instructions, of course, from those 2 committees I mentioned.
What we have done so far was to provide education to our staff and our clientele. Our older persons we have ensured, and they continue to try, and as many can get the flu vaccine, to get the flu vaccine, all right? The flu shot. Importantly, we are collaborating with the Ministry of Health, both in Belize City and in San Ignacio. We have conducted consultation with the staff, older persons, consultation in a component of infection control, proper hand washing. If anyone is ill, they should not be on duty, they report sick, get the time off. Additionally, we have had consultation and information on what is the coronavirus, the preventative measures. Also, what we have done, we recognize we have a vulnerable population. Visitations have been discontinued. All right, but however, our older persons have that opportunity to be in contact with their loved ones through phone, and in event if anyone reach a stage where, at that dying stage, we're going to facilitate visitation.
With weakened immune systems, these men and women are at a higher risk. An estimated 29,000 older adults live across the country. Belize City has a population of about 7,000 older persons, and it will be the responsibility of their families to protect them from the virus. The National Council of Aging says that the population most impacted by the pandemic are those persons 60 years and over. Approximately 6% of Belize's population is considered older persons, and the population increases by 1,200 every year. Headed by Executive Director Ichel Put, the Council has been in dialogue with the voice branches in each district, supporting the dissemination of information for older persons in the community level.
One of the first things that we want families to take seriously is that if you have been ill or you've been in contact with someone that has been ill, to practice social distancing. Because as we can see with the experience internationally, the coronavirus is proving to be deadly for people 60 plus. So we're looking at practicing social distancing. You can keep in contact with your older persons via phone, via text, or putting in place the measures that you need within your home to maintain good hygiene. Even keeping up with the hand washing, the disinfecting, all of these things. And if the older person in your home has an underlying health condition, to ensure that his or her health condition is under control, your diabetes, your hypertension, and that they have the medication that is necessary on hand. We are also stressing that if the older person in your care shows any signs of flu symptoms, to contact the Ministry of Health hotline, because there's no time that we can wait to see what it will develop in with an older person.
Put says that older persons remain a valuable part of the country, and their lives can be protected by the collective and responsible actions of all Belizeans. Reporting for News 5, Hipólito Novello.
There is a lot of information available on the internet on COVID-19. In the following story, we walk you through the steps to help you minimize risks. Now, soap and water are your best defenses against viruses, but hand sanitizer is a good substitute. Washing with soap and water is a key public practice that can significantly slow the rate of the pandemic and limit the number of infections. But it works when everyone washes their hands. The process starts with a good lather. Here's that story with Andrea Polanco.
The best way to prevent the transmission of the novel coronavirus is to wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water. While this virus that's causing COVID-19 is a nasty bug, it is easily destroyed with many disinfectants when used the right way. While hand washing is supposed to be part of our daily personal hygiene, you must ensure that you're doing it the right way. Charletta Casanova of the Belize Red Cross has set up a small station to demonstrate proper hand washing steps. It's a timed, multi-step process of wet, lather, scrub, rinse, and dry.
But we also talk about when we're doing hand washing that you use running water. Don't come and just pour the water in the container and then wash from there, because that's not healthy. So Andrew going to be my facet and he's going to throw the water. So I'm wetting my hand. First of all, I have on a watch, so I'm going to take it off so that it's not waterproof. Then if it's waterproof, you can keep it on. If it's not, then you take it out. I wet my hands, and I'm going to wet it all the way up here to my elbows, because it has been exposed also to germs, especially if I say I did like this and I sneeze with my hands. I get the soap, and I rub my hands together, and usually what kills the germs on your hand, it's the sod. So if I see that the sod don't have enough soap, I can always go and get some more. And I take it up to my elbows and I rub.
Scrubbing the hands should take at least 20 seconds. If you need a timer, you can sing or hum the happy birthday song while you scrub.
And while you're doing this, it takes like 20 seconds, and there's many songs that you can sing. And one of the songs that we usually use when we're dealing with schools is the happy birthday songs, because it's a very catchy song that we use. So while I'm doing this, if you notice, there's a gap between your hands, so you take your fingers like this, and it also helps with who have on nails, and you wash the inside of your hands like this, and then you do it on the other side, right? You also make sure, because you have a lot of people that use nails, so you have to take an extra time to continue to take more time and clean between each one, and then from there you wash between the fingers. And we go to the other one. We also use the big thumb, because most of the time we forget the thumbs. So we have to come into the thumb and do it like this. And then each finger, right? If you have hand rings, you push it forward, you wash, push it backwards. Because some people can take off their rings. So you make sure that you get under them by pushing them front and back and turning it around so that you get to each one of them.
And when you're finished scrubbing, you must rinse off properly and dry your hands.
If you notice, my hand is not touching the water that is coming off my hand, because that's the germs that I'm washing off. And I use a paper towel. If you don't have paper towel, it's not best for you to put it on your clothes, because then you get back the same germs. If you don't have a paper towel, then it's best you just drip dry. But be careful when you're doing this, because then you don't want the water from your hands to spin on anyone else. So what I usually do, I'll take off a good amount of paper and I fold it in half. And I start sapping from my elbow, come down. Then I deal with my fingers. Then for the next hand, I do it like this, turn it over, and I sap, come down. And usually when you're in the bathroom and we finish this, the same paper that you finish with your hands, you use to hold the doorknob to come out the bathroom, then you dispose of the papers.
Proper hand washing should be complemented by overall good hygiene practices, as it is one of the low-cost and highly effective ways of preventing the spread of the virus. While many use hand sanitizers, it shouldn't replace soap and water. Those sanitizers should also contain at least 60% alcohol and be used when water and soap are not accessible. The Belize Red Cross says that hand washing should be followed by other preventative measures.
A lot of people are going crazy buying a lot of sanitizer out there, but if it is not as effective as the soap and water, that's the number one. Sanitizer is like the secondary method that is being used, but once you are at home and you have soap and water, we strongly recommend that you use that. Stay away like 6 feet from each other. You can use elbow to not shaking hands. Clean your surfaces with Clorox or Lysol or anything. Your doorknobs, your bathroom doors, the pipes, the faucets, clean them regularly. Even the refrigerator door or the stove.
You should wash your hands frequently and especially during the key times that you're likely to get or spread germs. Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us. And from all of us here at News 5, good night.